Manufacturing Mavericks is an experiment. And basically what it is getting an understanding of leaders in their profession, and not just in apparel, but basically leaders in their profession, understanding them, their business, and how they're innovating, what their process is, and invariably if there's an association where we can help them out. But it's a pretty defined, and you know me, everything is really casual, so I don't do it in a formal manner. What we always do is we will, and I'll ask you at the end of the conversation, is we post a 1-minute little blurb that we do on LinkedIn, which is usually the introduction, and we prefer it not to be an elevator pitch, but it's more about a little bit of wisdom or who you are, what you're all about from a personal perspective, that at least if you were going to look on LinkedIn, get you interested to watch the podcast. So it's all an experiment to us. So the first comment or question that I have is, the word maverick is a pretty strong word. When I will look at a LinkedIn profile and I see innovators, like when I see these words that almost make it sound like they're full of themselves, I shake my head immediately. So my first question to you is, what is your opinion of what a maverick is? And if you feel that that describes who you are.
Okay, so I'm much like you in terms of my response when I see those things as well. I once in a while have to recognize at times the way I'm being affected by platforms like LinkedIn, and I take breaks because there's so much of that going on there that I find it a little nauseating. There's a lot of great memes out there right now making fun of LinkedIn that I'll send to you, because they're basically, it makes fun of how everybody's out there congratulating each other all day long and talking each other up and talking about the promotions and about the Mavericks that they are. Although the word maverick, I think I don't see that much actually, and I happen to like the word. Now you're asking somebody with at times imposter syndrome if I consider myself one, which is how. So it's a difficult one for me to answer. I will tell you, I'm of recent. I've been putting myself out there more, personally, on a personal brand, but also in the industry professionally, and because I've been advised by people in all different aspects, whether it's marketing people or peers, coworkers, that I do have that. I could fall under that maverick title. That there's a lot to offer there. It's not a word that scares me. I think it could resonate, and I think by today's standards, if you want to be in that world, in that LinkedIn environment, I think it's a safe word. I think it's one that stands out, and I guess yes, I could. At this point, with this many years under my belt, they say it takes 10,000 hours. I think that's the old saying. So it's been about 10 years. I think that it's been longer than 10 years. But yeah, I'd be comfortable to say that I fall into that category.
Okay, because one of the definitions that I hear a lot, just to sum it up, is usually like an out-of-the-box thinker. Easiest way to
Which an entrepreneur has to be. These entrepreneurs mostly you're not, you know, you have to be one, right? If you're going to survive in this climate. And yeah, that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, well, I happen to agree. You know, I have my philosophies on who they are, and you know, it's like I look at Musk, I look at Jobs, I look at these guys that really make a change. Now, Musk is a little, at this point, he's polluted his name, in my opinion. But I look at SpaceX, and I actually look at Powerwall as ways to change the world. Tesla's a car, an electric car, great. But I think that what SpaceX has done is insane. And I think that the possibilities of Powerwall, the way that they're actually building cities in the middle of nowhere with electricity based on, you know, harnessing the power of the sun, these are the kind of things that I look up to and I admire. So I know you relatively well. But can you explain a little bit about your growth? And I'm almost going to push it back to call it those teenage years when you felt that you could, if you were like me, at 18, I thought I could solve world hunger. We were so confident in what we were capable of doing in our lives and how that's transitioned from, we'll call it the dreams of a young man to where you are now.
It's funny you ask. I've been of recent starting to revert back to the dreams of a young man. But I think I had to go through, there was obviously a lot of growing pains to get to a place where I'm now getting back into a place where I'm ready to diversify and expand into, for lack of a better word, call it these dreamed up ideas that are a lot more tangible now. But the world changed in a way where I'm in the way that where entrepreneurship, being able to wake up and start a brand or a business off an idea, fail and get back up and do it again with another one is so easy now. Excuse me, it's not that easy, but it's easy to, the startup has changed with direct to consumer and the availability of Shopify and artificial intelligence. When you start using these tools and you start to hone in on them and dive in, you can see very quickly. Now, you first you need the idea. You need some expertise, of course, and not everything is done digitally. Obviously, we need connections. We need people still. But that's where I am now, and I'm working on a couple of things that I would say 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would almost think was an impossibility to do it the way I'm doing it now. To talk about the growth that took me to get here, I am 43. I'm only 43. So, as a young man, as a young boy, seeing an opportunity in this industry in fashion through a family business, it's where it started. I wanted to be able to provide the way that, let's say, my father was providing, and I saw the opportunity there, and I had an appreciation for the work. I grew up watching a business. I mean, they were domestic manufacturers. I was running around a cutting room. It was all locally made. I was meeting a ton of people. It was exciting. So I found myself drawn to it. So much so that I went and studied it, got an education at LaSalle College, really wanted to go in that direction. So I did. And while I'm saying that it may be easier now, at the same time, when I started getting rolling, I tried a few different things, but at the same time, what was really driving business when I got into cheerleader about 11 years ago, was the connections that were being made out of the digital space. There was no digital space. We were doing everything on the trade show floor and visiting customers and sitting with reps and talking on the phone. This wasn't available. So there was an element of that relationship building that I was really drawn to. You know, trade shows would end, my partner and I would, plans would be made for the evening with the people that we were there with. It was ongoing, and that was how we were doing business. We were engaging that way, and but I think slowly what started to happen was with the digital space becoming important, people didn't know what to do with it anymore. Emailing became the way of communication. The traveling slowed down. And that I think to me was the most difficult period for us. A lot of complaining about the shows not being the same. I would go to the shows, the bigger ones. Everybody there is saying, "What are we doing here?" Nobody's showing up. Travel became a little bit more difficult, more expensive, and the other thing is, outside of the shows, we noticed reps weren't moving around that much. They became email warriors. And I think we were a little bit late to jump on the direct-to-consumer bandwagon, but that started to happen. But to navigate that was a little bit difficult. So that was probably the past, and not to say it's easy now either. We're a brand, CHRLDR specifically, was built on the wholesale distribution model, selling to multi-line stores through multi-line showrooms. That's where we made our path, and adjusting and bringing D2C in, and that advertising space, it's been a process, but one that we've been very interested in and committed to for a long time. And that's been, the past like 5-6 years, navigating all that and getting all that in order has been interesting to say the least. Fast forward to today, I think we're using all these tools really well. We understand the landscape a little bit more. We're adjusting. We're bringing in the people we need to play in all these different spaces. We understand now we need to do it all. It's like once in a while, we'll look at each other and say, Hardeep and I, my partner and I, will look at each other and say, should we just lower our prices and be direct to consumer, and that's it, and forget about the wholesale business? Or should we forget about direct to consumer and just focus on our wholesale market, forget about all that advertising? And then we look at each other and say, no, you just got to do it all. You have to you really do. It's all branding. If you want to be a brand, I mean, we do some private label, we dabble in a lot of things, but if you want to be a brand, you have to be touching on all of these different models. And when we're working on our digital space, and we're working on our social media, we're building out those platforms. It's not for direct sales. It's not only to build traffic onto our website. Everybody is engaged in that world, whether it's retailers, reps, and if you want to be out there, you got to be involved. So we're playing catch up with all that right now. It's been hard at times. It's been exciting at times. It's mostly exciting. It could be expensive, but that's the commitment you make. And again, like I was saying, we've had a lot of ideas that's come up over the past 10 years, my partner and I, that have been on hold just to try to get all this in order. It's been 10,000 hours, I guess. So we feel that we have enough knowledge to, branch out and do other things at the same time, sort of diversify in the same space, but like we have the team and the knowledge now to do other things that we're excited about. One of which is podcasting. We have something coming up, hopefully in 2025. Hard to get around to.
I'll tell you about my experience. I do want to be cognizant of time.
Yeah, sure.
So you've answered one of my questions about innovation. I think that you've explained that innately, so that I appreciate. You know, we have a little bit of history on cheerleader, but I have two remaining questions.
Okay.
And I want to make sure we wrap it up in time. The first one is, and you hear this cliche often, if you were able to talk to your younger self, what would you say? And I kind of like to twist that question a little bit. One, because I hate cliche, but two, because I'm trying to get an exterior opinion of what it is. So let's run a scenario where you're sitting in a bar. If you drink, you're sitting in a bar, and a young man or woman is sitting next to you. They're young. They turn to you and they say, "You know what? I'm really having a difficult time. You look comfortable with yourself. And I don't know what to do. I'm really at a crossroads in my life. Where do you have any advice that you can give me to help guide my path?"
Creatively, don't listen to anybody. Definitely create. If you are conceptualizing something, lean into it. You can run it by people, but if you believe in it, you just got to go for it. Don't be afraid of failure. And it's all hard work.
You know what just impressed me with that? And it's, I think, the first time I've seen it. You really look deep into yourself for that. You know, sometimes you get all kinds of um, quick responses. I really like the way I saw you. I saw the hamsters turning. It was really a fascinating insight into the way you think, because the answer is simple, but it's just how deep you had to dig to get that answer. And I can appreciate that. And I have one more request of you. As I mentioned, usually we put up a short little blurb on LinkedIn with a description, and I will send you an email as to requisition for a high quality logo, a description that we will use both in the introduction to this in LinkedIn, along with a minute, 30 seconds, minute, whatever time frame it is, that, and you made a joke about the memes of LinkedIn. If you were looking, so it makes it even more difficult to ask this question, but if you were to run across a blurb from Allan and it was about Eric and the podcast that we just did called Manufacturing Mavericks, what is that 30-second, 1 minute blurb that you would like to see, that you feel would attract you to take 30 minutes or 45 minutes out of your day to watch this podcast?
I would say what's this podcast called again? Mavericks.
Manufacturing Mavericks.
Manufacturing Mavericks. I would say Manufacturing Mavericks, an honor to be on it, because it's a place where industry thought leaders come to hear stories of hope, the war stories, the good times and the bad times that we're all sharing together, and a place where honesty and truth is spoken about, and a great place to get great ideas and to learn.
Thank you. And again, I appreciate the answer, because and I mean, I know why I've built this relationship with you, because you truly are a unique individual. I really appreciate you as a human being. And I thank you for today. I would, I think on a personal level, let's catch up at some point soon, just sort of
For sure.
I'd love to hear the ideas you're bouncing around. I'd love you to fill in on what's going on our side. But Eric, I want to thank you for being here. I think that little introduction will be really well received. Fingers are crossed. I will send you a rough draft of it for your approval, because I never put anything up without approval, and request for a logo and a description. But I want again to thank you for being here, being able to put aside friendship and truly delve into your experience and your thoughts on manufacturing. So I thank you again. If I don't see you or hear from you, happy holidays. All the best to you and your family.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Erica. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.